Madam Moderator. Madam Moderator, this is Phil Hamilton, Precinct 7 Town Meeting Member and Chair of the Conservation Commission. This is an explanation of Article 10K, requesting authorization of Community Preservation Act funds to construct a universally accessible trail in the Parker Meadow Conservation Area. This project began 6 or 7 years ago. When a resident whose mother was in a wheelchair began making inquiries about whether Parker Meadow could be made accessible to people like her mother. Parker Meadow, because of its relatively flat terrain, its proximity to the town center, and its scenic beauty, was thought to be the ideal site for a universally accessible trail. The Conservation Commission, joined by the Commission on Disability and the Recreation Department, requested and were granted CPA funds for the design of the trail. After some delays caused by staff turnover and an unsuccessful round of bidding, a design was completed in the spring of 2020. The design process involved several well-attended meetings, as well as a site visit with abutters and other stakeholders. The Conservation Commission approved the design and submitted it to the Community Preservation Committee, which unanimously approved the funding for the project. Now, let me just tell you what the plan involves. It involves 3 different elements. The first is a realignment and upgrading of the parking area, which is located here on Revere Street. And the second is 2 accessible trails. The first goes from the parking area to the pond, and the second goes from the Minuteman Bikeway, meeting the other trail, and then continuing around the pond and back to the bikeway. And using those trails, people can access Parker Meadow and the accessible trails either from Revere Street in an automobile or along the bikeway itself. In addition, the plan includes a viewing platform, which is located at the intersection of the 2 trails. All elements of the plan comply with the stringent standards of the Americans with Disabilities Act. This is the plan for the parking area. You see that there is a handicapped accessible parking space here, a hardened parking space with a walkway that connects to the path. This is the beginning of the accessible pathway. And this is a plan at a higher level that shows the pathway continuing from the parking area down here all the way to the edge of the pond where the viewing platform will be located. The other trail starts here at the Minuteman Bikeway, goes around the pond, in the process crossing 2 streams, one here and one here, on wooden boardwalk bridges, and then continues to back to the Minuteman Bikeway. The trails, which follow already established paths in Parker Meadow, will provide 1,755 linear feet, or 1/3 of a mile, of walkways that are universally accessible. That is, that can be navigated by a person in a wheelchair, by a person with a walker, by a person with a stroller, and by others whose mobility issues now make it very difficult or even impossible for them to enjoy the town's conservation lands. This is a sketch showing the viewing platform. This is the trail coming from Revere Street. This is the trail coming from the bike path. You'll see there's room here, plenty of room for a wheelchair, and people who don't need a wheelchair have a bench to sit in, and there's quite a bit of space here. And it's separated, it's not sticking out into the pond, but it's at the edge of the pond. Now, unfortunately, compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act is not cheap. Here's a breakdown of the estimated cost of the project. You see that the largest item by far is $340,269 for construction of the trails. That includes 1,390 linear feet of 5-foot wide stone dust pathway on a base that's excavated 10 inches below the surface. It also includes 365 linear feet of 5-foot wide boardwalks with helical piers. Both of those are very expensive items. Then the parking improvements will cost $57,079. The viewing platform will cost $24,537. When I say will cost, these are all estimates. We hope, of course, that we're going to get lower bids for doing this. And then we have the usual contingencies, et cetera, for the total amount of $548,495. Madam Moderator, that concludes my explanation of the project. Its cost reflects the significant changes necessary to bring walking paths into compliance with the standards of universal accessibility reflected in the requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act. The Conservation Commission is committed to making Lexington's conservation lands available to as many of our residents as want to enjoy them. It is seldom feasible to realistically offer our open space to those with limited mobility. This article gives us an opportunity to do that. I hope you will join me in supporting it. Thank you, Madam Moderator.